I'm pretty sure that Herlo is not happy. He is not happy at all. It must be super frustrating because, the one thing is the money, but as a team manager, at the end of the day, you want to build a team to have success. And Van Gils was perfect in that picture of getting success in the future.
Everybody, welcome back to the Move Plus. I'm Spencer Martin. As always, I'm here with Johan Bruyneel. We are going through the big topics of the week, which is Maxim van Gils' contract drama with his Lotto-Dstny team. Johan has a few ideas about where he might be headed after breaking his recently renewed deal. Very strange situation. And then we'll get into a few reader questions. If you want your question read on the show, email info@wedo.team with that question, and we will read it in the next few weeks. Johan, before we get going, you just got back from a big training camp. We were in a big like a Strava competition to see who could ride the most before the end of the year, and then you just absolutely crushed me. I guess there's a reason that you've won Tour de France stages and a bunch of big races, and I haven't. You definitely humbled me. How was the training camp?
No, training camp is, it was a little cycling trip with two friends. We went for 4 days to Altea, which is Calpe, the Alicante region where it's a lot of cyclists are living there. Van der Poel's living there, Evenepoel, Wout van Aert's currently training there. So we obviously saw a bunch of riders. It was good. I just got back like an hour ago, so we had to hurry to do this podcast. So it was really good. Weather's great. The roads are fine. Everybody's used to dealing with cyclists on the road. There's a lot of coffee shops which are, catered to cyclists. So it was great. This morning, actually, I ran into, by surprise, Fabio Jakobsen and rode a bit with him. So that was nice. But yeah, all good. I'm afraid, Spencer. I mean, unless you pull something out of the bag like last minute before New Year, I'm afraid that I'm going to win the competition between us of most kilometers. But listen, it's still a month and 10 days until the end of the year. So we never know what happens.
I'm like Vindigo. I'm like 10 minutes down with a week left in the tour. I'm thinking about next year, 2025. How can I get a good start? And also, I've been on the road. I'm in a replica of the hotel room I was in the last time we recorded last week, but on a different continent. So that's not helping my mileage either. But Johan, you were talking days ago before it was public about rumors you heard. Maxim van Gils, how old is he? He is 24 years old on Lotto-Dstny. I'm looking at his biggest results this year. I mean, actually, crazy year. 3rd at Strade Bianche, 7th at Milano-San Remo, 4th at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 3rd at Flèche-Wallonne, wins Eschborn Frankfurt. Who doesn't remember that race? But that was a big win, and that is a World Tour race. 4th at GP Montreal. So really talented young rider. What's weird about this is he just renewed. If you remember this, it was in the spring. He renewed with Lotto for more money, I have to assume, through 2026. Then you're telling me a few days ago that he's, rumored to be breaking his contract and leaving. Like, relevant information is in between renewing his contract and now apparently he signed with the new agency. I heard it was the same agent as Tadej Pogacar and Kai Udenbrooks, who left. If you remember, he left Bora last year to go to Visma. So clearly went to some sort of agency that has the skills to get riders out of contracts. But right now, all we know is it looks like he's leaving Lotto. We don't know where he's going. You have a lot of background on this. What can you tell us about it?
Well, first of all, he's a Belgian rider riding for a Belgian team. So that's the start of the whole thing. And there's a law in Belgium. It's a law. It's very old. It's very old. It's from 1978 already, which is a law that says that there's a free transit of employees. Basically, there's nobody who can hold you, force you to stay in your working place if you want to move on to somewhere else, under the condition that you pay the remainder of your contract. That's the start. So basically, in this case, we know that Maxim van Gils did renew his contract at the beginning of this year for 2025 and 2026. A better contract. Reportedly, I don't know which contract he was on, but this was before, obviously, he had all these good results. But I think it's 500,000 or 600,000 per year. So let's say roughly $1 million or $1.2 million, which is not a bad contract. But of course, I think he outperformed this year with results what he was negotiating in the spring, right? And obviously, these kind of negotiations, it's a knife that cuts both ways, right? You kind of negotiate and you want a multi-year deal, wanting security. And if you have a good agency, you make provisions in your contract saying, okay, if there's bonuses attached to it, and if I perform so and so, then I have these kind of bonuses that are added to my value. Van Gils was with Wasserman. Wasserman bought a agency in Belgium, and so it's called Wasserman Management or Cycling Management. I don't know. It's a guy. The name is called Dries Smets. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of relationships with teams, and from what I can understand, he is pretty straightforward, quite fair for all the parties. So I know that there's several teams who like to do business with him because he is always correct. This is the thing. There's a lot of teams that like certain agents and then don't like other agents because they don't keep their word, or they negotiate multi-year deals and straight after they shop around with other teams. This has been going on for a very long time. When I was still a team manager, there were already some of those guys, and they're still around, by the way. So that's the start. Van Gils gets this new contract, is obviously happy to sign that contract. And from my information, 1 or 2 months ago, all of a sudden, Lotto, the management of Lotto, is contacted by the new agent of Maxim van Gils, Alex Carrera. If I'm the manager of Lotto, I would say, why the hell does this guy contact me? Let's say we just negotiated a new contract. So Carrera says, okay, from now on, you need to talk to me. But there's nothing to talk, really, because you just signed a new contract for 2 years, right? Now, it turns out that Alex Carrera is also the agent of Tadej Pogačar, but also, as you say, Jan Uijtenbroeks, who is now also known to have broken his contract with what was then Bora, now Red Bull Bora, to go to Visma Leasebike. Obviously, Bora was not happy with that situation. First, they said, well, he's with us and he's not going anywhere. Turned out that finally he did exactly the same as Van Gils is now doing. So it's a bit ironic, I think, to see that you have Carrera first taking away Uijtenbroeks from an unhappy Bora against their will, and now takes away Van Gils and brings a new rider to Bora. There you see that it's pure business, and the agents are there. Some are liked, some are not liked, but the teams have to deal with them because ultimately those are the guys who are calling the shots. So the case of Van Gils is, I think it's pretty straightforward, actually, if you look at it. I read an article of a Belgian journalist who does always a really, really good research, Johan for the magazine Knack. And I just read the article, and he interviews a specialist in sports rights who explains it very well. Talks about the law of 1978, which makes these kind of things possible. So in this case, if you look at the contract of Van Gils, let's say if it's 500,000 or 600,000, he can break his contract immediately, like today, and he needs to pay the remainder of his contract. So basically 25 months, like December and the next 2 months, that would come to a total of between 1 and 1.2 million. And that's obviously in the case that he gets a lot bigger contract somewhere else. I've done some like rough calculations. In my opinion, I think that Carrera is probably estimating the value of a rider like Maxim van Gils to 2 million a year. If he signs a new deal somewhere for 2 million a year, that's 4 million. So 1.2 million, subtract that, it's still 2.8 million. So it's still a pretty good deal. In the case he would have to pay his contract himself. Now, it's also possible that the new team will pay part of that contract. So that's the situation legally in Belgium, right? Then, of course, the next question is, well, what about the UCI? UCI, could they prevent this from happening? Because the UCI rules state specifically that in order for a rider to change teams during the term of his contract, there needs to be an agreement between the three parties: the old team, the new team, and the rider. Obviously, this is not the case here. Then the UCI rules stipulate that they can fine the rider, they can fine the team, they can try to prevent him from racing for 3 months or 6 months. Those are the UCI rules. Now, I can tell you already, this is not going to happen. They're not going to do anything, because if it's about this kind of, like, say, higher profile rider, and then we can go into, okay, which team could it be? They say Red Bull, Bora. Some people say Ineos. It's obviously, it must be a team with relatively deep pockets at this point of the year. But anyways, UCI won't do anything, because most of the UCI regulations, if you test any of those regulations in a normal court of law, they're illegal. They can't do nothing. The European law would straight away say, well, there is this free transit of employees. You would always lose. The UCI would always lose. What they could make life difficult for the rider and the team, but they will lose the case. So I don't think they want that. Then on the other hand, also Lotto could also try to sue the new team. In any case, they will have to let the rider go if the rider doesn't want to stay, and they will get the remaining amount of the contract that they had destined to Van Gils, which was over 1 million. Sporting wise, it's not great. It's not a great situation for the team. Financially, it's a bit better. Let's not forget that Lotto-Dstny this year is called Lotto next year, because Destiny is pulling out. I've read somewhere that Destiny was responsible for about 5 to 6 million in the budget. That's not there next year. So obviously Lotto as a company would need to put up some money, not 6 million, but maybe half of it. So, the extra 1.2 million that they would get for Van Gils would be welcome financially. So Lotto as a company is probably not too sad about the situation, but for the team, it's a big loss. I mean, it's one of their 3 big performers. They have invested heavily in trying to renew the 3 young riders, which are Van Gils and Van Eetveld and De Lee. The whole team is built around those 3 guys. And now in the month of November, getting this news that one of these guys has all of a sudden decided to leave, I can understand that the team management is super frustrated, because there's no alternative. You can't sign nobody else to replace or to try to compensate the loss on the sporting side. And I've been looking a little bit from a distance in the last few weeks, and when I saw the news about Van Gils, I remembered I saw Van Gils he was on a trip, on a visit to the Orbea factory, which has become the bike sponsor of Lotto, and also a pretty important sponsor. I think their financial contribution is quite significant. And they had Van Gils present there, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks ago, probably. And they were planning to do a whole marketing campaign with him about new bikes. And but there's nobody who can tell me that Van Gils didn't know 3 weeks ago that he was staying with Lotto. He already knew that he was not going to stay there. So he also went last week to the team gathering, actually. There was a team come together, the first one after the season, to plan for the new season. He sat down with all the team managers to talk about the plan. And then a few days later, the team gets a certified letter saying that he has decided to break his contract immediately. So that's a bit strong. But I've also read in the article of Jonas Kripter that Lotto could sue the new team if they can prove it was something which is called third-party complicity. It's something like unfair recruitment, but they would need to prove specifically what the exact commercial and financial damage is to the team with the loss of Van Gils. And, to put a number on it, it's quite complicated. And then it's still really unsure whether a judge would rule in their favor, since they would have had already the compensation of the remainder of the contract. So I think they just have to sit and swallow it, unfortunately. It's now we have seen Uiterbroeks, we've seen Van Gils. I'd love to see. I mean, that's something that I actually don't know yet. If it's just the Belgian law. I know that the Belgian law of 1978 specifically states that there's a free transit of employees, and that anybody can decide at any time to change employer if you compensate your employer with the remainder of your contract. Something tells me that European law would more or less go in the same direction. I've seen something in soccer. It goes into the same direction. It could be maybe a bit more complicated legally, but the end result would be the same. So I think that this is, we have these two cases now recently. We've had them in the past already. It's very old. I had exactly the same situation in, I don't know if it's 2001 or 2002 with Tom Bonen, actually. Tom Bonen was on my team as a new professional on obviously a very small salary, new professional salary. And exactly the same thing happened. After 1 year, he decided that he didn't want to stay. I could understand his reasoning, but we had a contract. And when I was presented with those facts that this law stated that he could leave, I couldn't do anything. He just had to pay a small amount, which was the amount of the remainder of the contract, which was nothing. So there's nothing you can do. And it could potentially be a sign that we go towards a situation where riders sign contracts, they have the right agents, and these agents straight away start to, if you have a young talent with a 3-year contract, you sign for it because you sign for that security, but straight away you start shopping around to see if you have better deals. And then, you could always buy the contract, even if you have signed a multi-year deal.
Yeah, because there are UCI rules, as you said, that protect teams against this. It's all a bit theoretical because UCI rules are always trumped by laws, actual laws from countries, sovereign countries that exist and are, believe it or not, more powerful than the UCI. But all of this, is this like a little, I think Hulot would disagree with me, but it's a little convenient for Lotto. So they re-sign them. And when you give someone an extension like that, it's an insurance policy, because then if they want to buy out of their own contract, they have to pay more money to do so in the future. They're cruising to promotion. Like, they don't need a lot of points in 2025. They're going to be World Tour in 2026. They have a budget shortfall. They're going to get a nice check from whoever is acquiring Van Gils, and it's going to let them invest in like new young riders for the 2026 season when they will need to start. Like they've essentially completed their cycle. The new cycle starts in 2026. They almost have an off year next year. They have like that many points, and they have so many young, talented Belgians. They'll probably, and they have Arnaud Delis as well. They'll still continue to accumulate points in 2025 with or without Van Gils. It's actually not a terrible situation for them. I guess it starts to seem a little dystopian as if you say like you can have a contract, but you can always buy yourself out. But I guess it will just incentivize teams to lock people down. Like if you had signed Tom Boonen to a million euro per year deal before he left, you'd have gotten a big check from Quickstep who signed him. So I guess
they wouldn't have paid for that. They got Boonen because Bonin was on a salary of a new professional, which was super cheap. I think your reasoning, Spencer, is a bit far fetched. If it's convenient for Hilo and Lotto. Yes, there is the financial aspect, of course, but let's not forget, that these are the three main young Belgian riders that they wanted to build the team on. Van Gils is 24. You've just stated all his results. Pretty impressive, actually, if you look at it. So that's what they want to build around. How can you now find next year for 2026 a new Belgian talent of the same stature? It's going to be difficult. So yes, financially, it's not terrible, but I'm pretty sure that Hurlo is not happy. He is not happy at all. It must be super frustrating because, the one thing is the money, but as a team manager, at the end of the day, you want to build a team to have success. And Van Gils was perfect in that picture of getting success in the future. So, and I think it's above all also the disappointment in the human aspect, right? You sit down with the rider, you talk about the project, you try to motivate your team around these three guys, and then you sit down with them, and then 2 weeks later you get a certified letter saying I'm leaving the team. I would not be happy if I'm Hurlo at all. I could really understand if he's pissed off and frustrated. It's well, there's the financial aspect, there's the sporting aspect, and there's the personal and human aspect. And I think that sports and personal are completely gone through the mud now.
Yeah. I guess though, like one of the most important things about a rider is, do they want to be on your team or not? If they don't want to be there, they might not perform that well. And you see a lot of these riders that leave in this manner, like don't actually go on to perform better than when they force their way off a team.
Yeah. Look, Uiterbroeks is the clear example. Yeah. Won the Tour de l'Avenir, huge talent, won all these races, had a very promising first year as a professional. Then goes to his dream team because he absolutely wanted to go to Visma, because that was the other side of the hill where the grass was so green. It's not been very green this year for him. Not saying that he doesn't have it in him, but he was better at Bora than he was at Visma. Is Van Gils going the same way? We don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's true, but, I think he was super, super happy to sign that new deal in the spring of 2024. He was super happy to sign it, and he thought that was his value. And again, I cannot imagine that the new contract didn't have any provisions to compensate him for good results along the way. Knowing the guy who has negotiated the contract initially, that would have to have been in there. I think what happened is that finally you have this great season, and then you come across somebody, in this case, for example, Alex Carrera, who would probably has told Van Gils, hey, I think you are worth a lot more, because all the managers know more or less in big lines what these riders go for, what the value is of their contracts. And Carrera would have said, hey, you're an idiot if you ride for 500,000 or 600,000. You're worth 1.5 million. And then, as a young rider, he said, "Oh, really?" So, and he says, "Okay, well, I can fix that for you." That's probably what happened.
A pretty appealing pitch, I have to say.
I mean, I have to watch it. Yes, it's true. It's true. But, I'm trying to see it. And listen, let me tell you something. I've been a professional cyclist. I've been on Lotto in my young years, and I have broken my contract with Lotto. I have broken my contract. I signed a new deal, but in those times it was different. I signed a new deal for 2 years, and I negotiated a buyout clause. So Lotto signed me for two more years, and there was a buyout clause. If I paid so much, then I could leave. And I found a team who wanted to pay it. So it's not like I didn't rely on. And actually, if I would have known, that law was already in place then, but probably not known yet back in those days. But it's never fun. It's never fun. The rider looks for their own interest. In the case of Van Gils, if he's signing for 500 or 600, so he signs for 1.2 in total, and then all of a sudden he sees 3 million in front of him for the next 2 years. You would have to, you'd have to be stupid to not look into it, right? But it's a dangerous precedent that we could see more and more.
So I think the big question is, who is he worth 4 million euros to? But before I ask you that, so if we just agree that contracts mean nothing now in cycling, is this open the door for a team to say, well, we just signed a Giro d'Italia winner to a big contract. Oh, he just got injured and he's not the same rider anymore. Can they just cut him?
No, that's the thing, Spencer. It only works one way, which is not fair, right? So it's always the same. Riders are getting their agents. They are pushing for 3-year deals, 4-year deals. And as soon as they start to perform, they're asking for raises. But if they don't perform, they never ask for pay cuts themselves.
Yeah. You give someone the big extension, they don't perform. No one's offering to buy that out. You're stuck paying that.
That's the thing. So anyway, that's the way the law is, and you have to deal with it. But it should work both ways, right?
Yeah, the thing I worry most about is, over on your side of the pond, everyone always talks about soccer is the worst, football, that's the worst case scenario for cycling. But cycling is currently the worst for small teams, because at least for now, I heard there's a court case going on that might disrupt the transfer market in football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. But right now, if you cultivate a young talent and sell them, you make a lot of money. It's like Dortmund in Germany. This is their whole model. They cultivate these big talents, they sell them on, they get new ones. In cycling, I worry that there's not even that structure, and these small teams can really get picked apart by these big teams. I was just going to say, it'd be hilarious what if he's going to UAE? That would just absolutely demoralize everyone. But it could be, it could be technically UAE could come along and just say, hey, you're good. Why don't you come ride for us? We'll triple your salary. Whatever, doesn't mean anything to us. That's where I actually start to worry about this quite a bit, as great as it is to see these young riders making a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. In cycling, it's not the same, because, you have development teams, and you can put certain clauses in those contracts with those development riders. But I think legally it's very hard to enforce those if you have these kind of laws of labor law, basically, or, working law, whatever you want to call it, employment law. But I think we're going towards the model of soccer, that riders can be, transferred from one team to another. And then, you will have to look at, okay, what if teams start to get together and they start to have their, parallel market and starting to trade riders amongst each other, like it's happening in soccer right now.
We kind of have a homebrewed version of it. I thought that one of the savviest moves of the year that no one talked about was Alberto Bettiol, when the EF let him go to Astana, I believe in August. But if you think about that, they saved on what, almost 6 months of salary, that I'm sure is a substantial salary. But he generated
plus for sure that Astana had to pay quite a bit to get him too.
Yeah. So you get a nice little kicker and you save on, he didn't race that much from August to December. So you're like getting him off the books.
Did not get the points that he was planned to be getting for the team for Astana. I think it was kind of one of those panic moves, of Astana to try to. I mean, I think it looks not good for them to stay in the World Tour. A miracle would need to happen. And it's not going to be with Bettiol or with any other of those riders that they got on the team now. They're not all of a sudden going to start to perform and score that amount of points that they all of a sudden go from 25th place or something, wherever they are now, to 17th or 18th place. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I thought that was like EF laughing all the way to the bank on that one. But I think we could see that codified, and you actually can trade and transfer riders in the middle of the season. But what cycling lacks is there's no league. Like if you're Dortmund, you're in the Bundesliga and there's Bundesliga rules and there's a structure. Cycling, it's like a soup without a bowl. It's just all over the place. Without a professional league, that is harder to do, but we're kind of seeing it happen. It's concerning, but on one hand, but fascinating on the other, just to kind of watch this play out. I'm sure it's frustrating for these small teams, and I do worry for them that, so what happens to Dali? So Ineos, they don't have a sprinter. Why don't they they should just roll up to Dali and say, hey, how much money do you want? You should come race for us next year.
I think Dali is on a higher salary than Van Gils. That's for starters. Obviously, I mean, for the moment, he doesn't have the same agent as Van Gils and Uiterbroeks. So I don't think Dali will move. He's Belgian champion. He's quite Belgian centered also. But yeah, where do you think he's going to go, Van Gils? I mean, that's the other question, right? I mean, who can afford him and who wants him, and where is he going to end up?
I was going to ask you that question. I think one of I feel like people just say the same teams over and over again when something like this happens. Like, oh, Remco's going to Red Bull, Van Gils is going to Ineos. You're repeating the same teams over and over again because there's not that many teams that have the money. The problem, so Ineos has been a team that's mentioned. My issue with that is they're full. They have 30 riders in a contract. Not impossible. As you said, I think we did a show last year where you talked about you could buy riders out, send them home, send them to go pay for them to race for another team. We looked at their roster, before we did this show. It's not a lot of obvious candidates there to do that for. My biggest thing with Ineos is they're not spending a lot of money right now. I don't see them, especially with Pidcock. They're paying Pidcock monthly. Yeah. I don't see them rolling up. If they were afraid he's going to trigger bonuses at Lombardia, are they going to pay Van Gils 3 to 4 million euros to come over?
The thing about the bonuses in Lombardia, I'm still not buying that story, Spencer, by the way, about Pidcock. But I think Ineos, it's like you said, they would need to move at least one rider away or to another team. That's doable. Doesn't fit into the whole story of them wanting to cut costs and rebuild, right? And then, we've heard about Red Bull Bora. That's a possibility. They have deep pockets. They have space on the team. I just checked. They have only 26 riders. It would be a great fit, I think, for a rider like Van Gils. But I was just thinking now while we were speaking, what if it's Astana?
And didn't we say this last week about?
For some reason we have heard that I think we spoke about it, that they're going to double the budget. They're going to have a double budget, and let's say if it's 20 million, it's going to be 40. I don't know if that's going to be straight away the case, but this new company, this bike manufacturer or frame manufacturer company. Van Gils is obviously a rider who can score a lot of points next year. Not saying that if he's on Astana, it's going to happen, but it could be one of those moves, right? If I would be Van Gils, I would not take that deal, would not recommend that, because it's not a very... I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure if he's going to get paid all that money, even if he signed contracts there. I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, I was going to say,
leave it at that. But
I don't know how much we want to talk about that.
We can do a few episodes on that. But Red Bull Bora makes most sense. Then, who knows? Maybe next week we're going to say, hey, it's Ineos after all. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sure is that he's not going to be in Lotto, that's for sure.
The thing, if you're on Lotto, and maybe this is easy for me to say because I'm not turning the money down. I don't know if Ineos is an upgrade. Like Lotto, especially if you took me to the Lotto team bus after the tour and then took me to the Ineos team bus, I would say I much would rather be on Lotto. Just the Ineos, they looked miserable. It's like miserable. You can feel the misery just like coming out of the bus, seeping out of everywhere. I don't know. Like, I just am not convinced that would be a move that he would want to do. But yeah, Red Bull Bora.
I think the same, Spencer. I think especially for a rider like Van Gils, Lotto is a better environment for him than Ineos at this point, for sure.
Yeah. And if let's say he goes to Ineos, the results I just listed off, that's not moving the needle for Ineos. Like a podium at Liège, that's big for Lotto. That's not what Ineos is looking for. They're looking for home runs right now. I guess Red Bull Bora kind of makes sense. They only have 26 riders under contract, but whoever is at that team is going to have to do a lot of work, in a Grand Tour. Maybe he would have freedom in the one days. I'm trying to like their one day talents.
I don't think they would sign him for the tour. They would not sign him with the purpose of going to the tour. Maybe he has a place in the tour team, but the main purpose for Van Gils is to win one day races, and he's pretty good at that.
Yeah, I mean he's very good if that's what you want to do. I mean, I'm trying to think of who's the best one day racer on Red Bull, like hilly one day racer. Is it like Lawrence? Yeah, he does. I don't know if he's doing that anymore though. He's kind of. It seems like as he ages, and I think this is smart, he's like very targeted about what he does. Like he clearly wasn't the same one week Primos as he was in previous years. So we saw at Paris-Nice and things like that. But we're just guessing. Like we have no idea. And anyone that says they know doesn't know. That would be my words of wisdom in this situation. But I think that Ineos, there's too many obstacles. I just think that's too hard. I do think Astana. The only thing about Astana is if it's a 2-year deal, he has to be okay with going back to the second division in 2026 because they are going to get relegated. I don't think there's any way they can really save that.
Yes, but he would be on the same level as Lotto this year.
Yeah.
Astana gets relegated. They're going to be normally first or second in the second division, so they will have automatic entries in all the big races where they want to race. So it doesn't change a lot in the program.
Well, on Astana, moving on to the next topic, Mark Cavendish, been in the news recently. These are not like confirmed reports, but Cavendish, the whole thing about Cavendish has been a little strange to me. It feels like he's being purposely vague. I don't think he's coming back to Astana, even though they do suspiciously have a roster spot available. I saw a report that he's maybe going to Ineos as some sort of front office role. I don't like you have a personal relationship. So like we're tainted. You shouldn't listen to us talk. Like we were going to say Mark Cavendish would be fantastic in that role, even though I have questions about this, but let's just assume that that's true. He's going to Ineos. Who is he teaching how to sprint at that team? That was the strangest thing about that report to me. Like, okay, like what sprinter is he helping there? Or is he just hanging out with, is Geraint Thomas just hiring him to like hang out with him?
I think that report is BS. I mean, I can't see it. Not saying that he wouldn't be a value to the team, but I don't think Mark Cavendish just wants to be in that situation right now. I mean, he's late 30s, wants to spend time with the family, doesn't want to be bothered that much. Makes no sense. I mean, those rumors about an open door at Astana, that's definitely not going to be the case unless there's all of a sudden a shitload of money coming from the Chinese, but would make no sense either. So he's done his last race. He said he's retiring, not coming back as a cyclist, that's for sure. Having a management role he could be some kind of whatever consultant, external advisor, whatever. That could be the case, although I still don't see that happening. I think right now also the way things are moving at Ineos, it's extremely corporate. It's extremely planned and like really business moves. I don't think it would work for Cavendish.
Yeah, you don't see many big stars. How many big stars like either become directors right after they retire or go to be some sort of special advisor? That's you kind of want the Contador role, like, right? Like where you're on TV, but you're at home a lot. It seems a lot nicer.
Yeah. No, I think that, it comes from Italy. I think it's Beppe Conti, an Italian journalist, who came with that rumor. There's always a lot of rumors that coming from Italy that turn out not to be true.
It's their biggest export.
Yeah. So I'm not buying it. Spencer. I can't see it happening.
I can't either. I would look for some sort of TV situation, but he is. I don't know why he's being. Did you see this like Bottas video where it's him and Valtteri Bottas just being like, "What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
What's next?" Yeah. It was like he clearly wants us to think something's up. I don't think he's going to work for a team. I would look for some sort of television role.
Maybe in the future, but I don't think in his first year of retirement, probably not. Listen, he has, I don't know how many kids. He has 4 or 5 kids. I don't remember now.
Yeah, like maybe 5.
Yeah. Spend some time with them,
Yeah, that would be pretty bad. It's like, all right, guys, I'm off. I'll be gone 300 days a year. Hope it works out well here. Yeah. Hey, Hun, I'm actually working more than I did last year. Is that okay? But let's get into 2 listener questions, and then we will dip out for the week. The first one, on another podcast, this is from Alicio. On another podcast, a respected commentator maintained that the role of traditional domestique has changed a lot, with traditional support riders now being less sought after due to a different style of racing and the fact that everyone is after UCI points. What's your take on that, Johan? Also, bonus question, what's your favorite cycling biography? Mine is Charlie Wagelius' Domestique.
The role of pure domestiques from the past. I kind of agree that the role has changed. Before, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, there were a lot more riders that were purely in a helper's role, but were never thinking about their own results, and who were purely dedicated to a leader. And usually their career was starting and ending with that same leader, or they were hired to work for another leader, but always in that same role. There was a place for that, though. There was some really super, super good domestiques that were sought after and had a lot of value to teams. There's still some of those, but I can also see an evolution towards what our listener reader says, that you start to expect some results from some of those guys in other races. And also probably because there are a lot of really good riders who are, for specific occasions, ready to take that domestique role. And sometimes you can see that a rider who's been a domestique for 6-7 years, all of a sudden gets into a situation, hey, I don't have a team. I have no points. Nobody wants me. So I think it's a trend from the teams that they want more results, but also riders start to know also, hey, okay, I'll do this, I'll do all this work, but I have to make sure that I have a cushion. I have to have some personal results in case something happens, and all of a sudden, in last instance, there's no room for me on the team. Another team wants me. So I think that's a trend that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I picked this question for a reason for today because what you're talking about with the domestiques, like think of the best domestiques you can remember from the season. Just what comes to mind for me is like Joao Almeida and Niels Pollitt at the Tour. The thing is, like Niels Pollitt got second at Omloop. The he's an incredible rider. He's won a Tour de France stage, and Joao Almeida won the Tour of Switzerland or was second at the Tour of Switzerland.
And was fourth in the Tour de France, by the way.
Yeah, fourth in the Tour. Is an incredible rider, one of the best GC riders in the world. And those guys are domestiques in certain situations. So you have this, and it's what we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Everything is being sucked towards these big teams. So you have a situation where the domestiques on the best teams are better than the leaders on the mid to low level teams, which means if you're a domestique on a low level team, like you could really be having a hard time. And a lot of these domestiques on the best teams are scoring points on accident, like just by existing in the fitness levels they are, they're going to score a bunch of points. We should say, though, I do think people don't mention this when they talk about the race for points. Only 20 riders, the points only count for your top 20 riders. So you could have 10 riders that never score any points, and it doesn't penalize you at all. So there are riders I'm thinking of some right now, but I don't want to say their names, but there's riders that are just not scoring points and they are career domestiques. It probably is harder for them now because, if you want to avoid relegation, you want to get riders that can score points. But I guess my zag would be there will always be a market for someone who won't cause trouble and will just be a domestique. But with Van Gils, if he goes to Red Bull, like he could be in certain situations working as a domestique. So that role has changed a lot where it's almost now like part-time stars work part-time as domestiques and they're the best domestiques when they do that.
Yeah, that's true. I think UAE is a great example of that. Actually, they have a very diverse composition of the team, and they have some really, really good riders who are then the domestiques for the top leader. But it's also a unique situation because they have the best rider in the world, and so there's no discussion that whenever that guy is on the team, that everybody else needs to be at the service and a domestique. So yeah. Second part of the question, what was it again? Your favorite biography? I have none, Spencer. I have none because I haven't been reading cycling books. Definitely not been seeing any cycling documentaries or movies or. So no, I can't make any recommendation because I haven't found anything that's. I've been told that the documentary about Mark Cavendish is actually very nice. I haven't seen it yet, so that's maybe one I would like to see because it's an interesting story. But I haven't any recommendation. I don't have any recommendation of a cycling biography.
I've heard I didn't read it, but Charlie Wigelis' book is supposed to be good. I was watching. Also, I don't know if it counts as a biography, but Daniel Freebay's book on Jan Ullrich, The Best There Never Was, is very good. Would highly recommend it, but maybe that is a biography. It's not an autobiography. But I was watching the Jan Ullrich documentary this morning on a plane, and you were in it, Johan, in the first episode. They interviewed you. Yeah. It's like really surreal. I was like, why am I on a call with Johan? Oh, wait, he's in the movie. We have one more question, and then we will have to run. This is from Chris. Would it help or hurt cycling to do away with 3-week Grand Tours? Reason this came up in my head, Pidcock. I don't think he's a 3-week Grand Tour type rider physically. He could, but in terms of mindset and what he seems to be best at, it's not his thing. Totally fine. Everyone has their niche, but to not be considered as one of the greats because you're not winning 3-week races, is that fair? And then they go on to, there's a second half of the question, but I just wanted to I thought that was quite interesting. Mainly because I do think there should be one 3-week Grand Tour, and it should be the Tour de France, and the Giro and the Vuelta should be 2 weeks.
I think back to the same thing, Spencer. 3-week tours is 3-week tours. Listen, it's a different way of racing. It's pure a race of attrition. 3 weeks not the same as 2 weeks. Back in the days, you had the Tour of Switzerland, which was 10 days or 11 days sometimes. But I think especially, I'm not saying that the Tour of Italy or the Tour of Spain is not worth being 3 weeks. I'm just saying that in the actual way, the cycling now, with such a full calendar, that it would actually favor cycling to have the Tour de France. The Tour de France, whether we like it or not, will always remain the most important and most iconic race. So let's give them 3 weeks. Yeah, it's long. I think if it's 2 weeks and the course is proper with, the right amount of mountains and time trial, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the winner would still be the same. But I would definitely be in favor of having a 3-week Tour de France and then 2-week Giro, 2-week Vuelta. It would also make it easier to combine several Grand Tours for riders. And I'm all for it. 3 weeks is long, man. It's super long. It could, with shortening the Grand Tours could contribute to making the race more attractive, more dynamic, less boring. If you really want to cover a whole lot of terrain, 2 weeks would probably even bring more transfers. That's not good because you will always have to go. You have to have an open point A to B. So less stages means more transfers, right? But I think in the end it would be beneficial if the Tour de France is 3 weeks and the Giro and the Tour and the Giro and the Vuelta would be 2 weeks. I'm really in favor of that.
Yeah, I don't know if it would actually, if a different type of rider would be better. I'm trying to go through a list in my head, like, maybe like Adam Yates is someone that has won quite a few 1 week races, but I don't believe he's ever won a Grand Tour. But I think that's more of just coincidence that, the form he was on at the 2023 Tour, if he's at a standard Giro, he wins the Giro with that form. Like, yeah, exactly. I think if you're a good stage racer, you're usually just good at 1 to 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think the winner would be the same. If the course is right, if there's the proper balance between time trialing and mountain stages and some difficult stages, we would have one less mountain stage for sure, maybe only one time trial instead of 2 time trials. And because you have to have a bit of everything. Yeah? You have to have some flat stages for the sprinters and some stages for the punchers or the breakaway guys. But I think the overall result is would still be the strongest guy who wins a 2 week race.
Yeah, and it's kind of an uncomfortable thing that no one wants to talk about. But whether it be a Grand Tour, one day, it's all the same riders winning these. Like, if you look at monuments and Grand Tours, you have a few ones you can swap out. Like Mathieu van der Poel doesn't win Grand Tours, obviously. He doesn't even really win stages at Grand Tours. But that's more of I think he made some sort of calculation that he wants to train through those. He could, if he wanted to, obviously win a bunch of stages. But it's Tadej Pogačar, Primož Roglič, Jonas Vingegaard, Remco Evenepoel, who can, he got third at the Tour. He can win 1 days when they suit him. It's really just the big difference between, is it a really hilly race or a flat race? And if it's flatter, it's either going to be Wout van Aert or Mathieu van der Poel or Jasper Philipsen. If it's hillier, it's going to be Jonas Vingegaard, Tadej Pogačar, or Primož Roglič, or Remco Evenepoel. Like, those are the two types of races that happen in professional cycling right now. So it's quite interesting to see, but I'm not sure that if you would get like a different assortment of winners if you mix the races up a bunch.
No, I don't think so.
Well, we have 2 more questions, but we'll kick that to our next episode, which will probably be after Thanksgiving. We probably won't do one next week just because of the holiday, but you guys have The Move has a show coming up next week. So don't panic, everyone. Well, do you have anything else to add, Johan, before we take off?
No, that's it for me, Spencer.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.